Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to episode number 108 of Let's Go Racing with David Starr. Tyler Jones here with you. So glad to have you with us. Coming up on today's show, going to be joined by Mike Dunn. He owns, get this, folks, a two-time race-winning truck of David Starr's in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. We are going to get the whole lowdown of how Mike not only found this truck, but restored it to its original condition, where it's at, the backstory with this truck. Means a lot to David. We'll get his side of the story and his memories of this truck. It's going to be pretty interesting. You won't want to miss it coming up in just a few moments from right now. Later on, we'll have our news and notes segment, also our Ask David segment coming up at the end of today's show as well. As always, David Starr is here, the star of the show. He joins us right now, fresh off an Easter weekend. David, hope you had a good Easter holiday, my friend, and it was a good Easter weekend there for Christopher Bell as he got his first win of 2023 on the dirt there. The first time we've seen an actual dirt racer win on the Bristol Dirt.
Yeah, man, happy Easter to you guys, and it was amazing. Got to spend it with my family and caught up on some honeydews around my house, and it was good to slow down and enjoy Easter. But, man, there was some great racing on television. And, yeah, congratulations to Christopher Bell. That was, tell you what, my hat's off to NASCAR. They did a tremendous job on that dirt race there at Bristol. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was. Dominic from the RacingExperts.com joins us right now as well. Dom, Christopher Bell, he ended 2022 so well. And now he's got his first win of 2023 here. Christopher Bell, you could argue right now, is the best driver Joe Gibbs racing.
Yeah, I don't think that's far from the truth, actually. How? When you say it like that, that is so true. He's the only one to win a race so far this year. He's the only one locked in the playoffs or a virtual lock for the playoffs. And, yeah, he had that momentum at the end of the 2022 season and getting that right off, that walk-off win at Martinsville to advance to the championship for. And Christopher Bell, an actual – a regular at dirt, I should say, finally comes through and wins the Dirt Bristol race. I mean, let's be honest, Logano and Kyle Busch, past winners of this race, great race car drivers. But Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson, J.J. Haley, the guys that cut their teeth on the dirt, really cool to see one of the dirt guys stick it to the field on Sunday.
Well, and the race itself, I think every year there's going to be questions about the future of how much longer NASCAR wants to do this and if they should expand to do more dirt races. Dom, I'll say this. I like the Bristol Dirt concept. It was an entertaining race. It wasn't a great race, but it wasn't bad either. I like it. I know attendance wasn't that great, like 35 to 45% of that crowd, but I think it would have been about the same on the concrete anyway. Your ratings were solid. 3.5 million people tuned in on the Fox Broadcast Network. With all that said, like, what do you think of the future? You think we're going to continue this dirt race? Is there going to be more dirt races? What do you think about the prospects of this dirt race going forward, Dom?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know as far as what that future holds and what this deal is. Is it going to be another 2, 3, 4 years or what NASCAR wants to do with it? But I will say this, Tyler, I think it's a really good tribute to NASCAR's yesteryear presence where you had a lot of Cup Series races run on dirt tracks, and it had been since 1970. Until 2021 when we saw another dirt race. So I do like the fact that, hey, I'm a throwback guy. I like way back Wednesday, throwback Thursday, all that stuff. And I think this is a good tribute to that. Like you said, the concept's great. Does it move to another venue? Does it stay at Bristol? Is it eliminated altogether? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I personally hope it doesn't. And I hope it stays around for a little bit.
David, we saw some guys over the weekend step up and say that NASCAR has no business running on dirt, including Kyle Larson himself. He probably didn't make SMI and NASCAR too happy with those comments he made before the race. But he said that. Others have said that. The drivers seem to not be too big of fans. They say the cars don't belong on dirt. But as long as it's an entertaining product and people are watching, I don't see this going away anytime soon.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's man, it's a great product, and I can understand their frustrations or their comments but the fans love it, and to hear Dominic say, throwback to the 60s and the 70s when they ran on dirt, and you are talking about the best race car drivers in the world in the NASCAR Cup Series. And, I love the nostalgia, the throwback, but it just shows you how diversified and how good these guys are. For Joey Logano, Kyle Busch, Christopher Bell, and you see them. They to transition over to dirt. A lot of them don't have dirt experience, and how great they run, and what a great show they put on. It just really showcases the best race car drivers in the world. So I wasn't out there competing. Didn't compete last year on the Cup Series on the dirt. For me, just watching it on television, to me, I really enjoyed it and liked it. What the future holds for it, I'm not sure. But, I think NASCAR is really listening to the fans and watching the ratings. I don't think it hurts the sport by no means. And, I hope they continue to have at least one dirt race in all three NASCAR series in the future. I think it's a pretty cool and neat deal. There's so much, dirt racing in our country. I just really think for some of the dirt racers out there and the dirt racing fans that really don't pay much attention to NASCAR, really brings a new set of eyes to the sport, knowing that, hey, our NASCAR guys, our sport is transitioning over to dirt for a race, So I don't know, it's interesting to hear everybody's opinion. But, I think the product's good and I hope it continues.
Dom, one more before we bring in Mike here. The thing that I wonder about the future of NASCAR on dirt is, we've seen Bristol do the makeshift dirt track. It's not a traditional dirt course, and they've done that for a few years now. My imagination, my mind goes to this. What if NASCAR, maybe Bristol's not the best to pull this off, potentially speaking. What if you went to a traditional real dirt course like a Knoxville or an Eldora or something like that that's suited, that's made for this? Would we get a better product? Obviously, you can't have as many people in the seats, like the great Coliseum that is Bristol. But I wonder if that would help out and make these races slightly less, all the cautions that we've seen stack up, a little more entertaining of sorts if we went to a real traditional dirt track instead of maybe Bristol for this.
I feel like that would definitely have the potential to do that at a track that's more suited, more traditional for this kind of racing, where you have more dirt on the surface and you can actually see the dirt guys really come alive and see how much more the dirt would have an impact on the racing. It's interesting, Tyler. We'll have to see if NASCAR would weigh towards something like that, but it would be really cool.
Yeah, the trucks already racing at Knoxville. That'll be on the schedule again later this year. So we'll see if the Cup Series, what they do as far as dirt goes going forward. Dom, our next guest, this is one of the more interesting guests we've had on the show, and the story that came about this. I know that you usually do our introduction, but I'll say this much. I don't want you to spoil too much when we bring Mike in here, because we got a whole story to tell today.
Oh, we certainly do. And like I said, we like to give you guys a little peek behind the curtain. As you all know, you guys send in your questions every week, David Starr podcast at gmail.com. And Tyler, we overlooked a question there for a few weeks. And then we brought up Mike's question to David, and man, I don't want to reveal too much. Let's just go straight into it. Mike, thank you so much for joining us this week on Let's Go Racing. You have one heck of a story. You've gotten to hang out with David a little bit. It's going to be really fun to find out about this truck and just a little bit more about the backstory and origin of it.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it, and I'm really excited to let the David Starr fans know and talk about this number 75 Spears Craftsman truck that ran in its heyday, with David being the pilot and leading this truck to not just one, but two victories.
And I can tell you guys, if you're watching this YouTube version right now, that is not a green screen. That is the real truck. That is a real garage. That is the real vehicle that David raced in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. And it is so cool to have that as the background. And before we came on this week, we were talking about it, Mike, Tyler, and David. Man, all the guests we've had, that background that you have right there is pretty hard to top.
Thank you. It's really exciting to just even own this truck. And I think it was more exciting uncovering the history and finding out the winning history of it. Because when I first set eyes on it, I only knew that it was a Spears truck, and I had no idea what races it ran, where it ran. And so when I started digging, this treasure trove of information came out from one guy, and that guy was Jason Trincheri. He is the number 11 Kaulig Xfinity crew chief. And Jason had every record, everything on Spears when he was there. He was a young engineer back in those days. And David was a young up-and-coming star, and he kept everything. And it was Jason who really helped me uncover the history of the truck.
So let's start with this, Mike. How did you find the truck? Let's begin there.
So one day, just sitting upstairs watching TV with the wife, and I'm jumping on Facebook, and the power of the internet led me to a page called Street Legal NASCAR Race Trucks or something like that. So I went on there, and when I was on there, I was just, people were talking about looking for street legal trucks. A guy in Ohio piped in with a picture of a Napa truck, this truck behind me, and said, I got a truck for sale. And that sparked my interest. So I reached out to him, and his name was Mike Mueller. And I reached out to Mike and started talking to him about the truck. And this was in December of last year. And so between December and now, here we are in April, the truck already looks like this. And I've been going full speed since then.
That is an amazing truck. And like we were saying before we introduced you, so a little more on that backstory. We had gotten a fan question from Mike for the Ask David segment, and it mentioned in there that you had this truck and just wanted to bring it to David's attention. And I got to tell you, Mike, and everyone listening, when we got off the air of that show that night, I believe it was the Daytona show, we got off the air, and that's all David was talking about, that truck. He goes, we got to find out more about that truck.
It was really interesting as the history unfolded, and I really wanted to know, like, okay, I know it's a Spears truck, and so once I was told that by Mike Mueller, yeah, it was a Spears truck because it still retained everything on the inside, all the baby blue underneath the hood, the fenders, the undercarriage, everything was still the Spears blue. So when I started speaking with Mike, he's like, oh, it's a Spears truck. And he didn't really think much about it. And me, I'm a purist, and I'm like, okay, somebody drove it. Let's find out who drove it. So when I jumped online, it was Jason from the Xfinity car, the number 11 Xfinity car. And Jason's like, I have all the records for that. And so that's kind of what kind of led me that way really quickly.
So let me ask David this. David, where would you have guessed this truck was if you had any idea? Like, what's the process typically when you guys retire a truck or a vehicle in NASCAR? Where do they usually go from there?
Man, it's a very interesting question, and a question that's really challenging to answer. Driving schools, my driving school, Team Texas High Performance Driving Schools, a lot of the former Cup cars I have in my school. But, it's interesting what Mike has there, because over the years, I've been doing this 25 years, and people ask me, hey, where are some of your favorite race cars, race trucks, and I'm like, man, I own one of them back from early on. I have just one, and I've driven, hundreds and hundreds of different types of NASCAR race cars for different owners. And, and people ask me, hey, that truck you run second with at IRP or, whatever race. And I said, man, I really don't know. I don't know what happened to those race vehicles, and, sometimes when a team shuts down and the team doesn't continue to race in NASCAR, they sell off the assets, and different people buy the machinery, the equipment, engines, vehicles, and there's all kinds of stories of different racing teams and where these cars end up, but I don't really have a lot of information on most of all the cars I've driven over the years. And so to sit here and see that truck in the background, and when I learned about it and heard and started seeing pictures, and then Jason approached me. Jason's my good friend at the racetrack. He was telling me about Mike, and he was so enthused. I couldn't wait to see it. And when I finally saw some pictures of it, I was just amazed on how original it was. Like Mike was saying, the inside of the truck underneath the hood. I mean, it's like, yeah, that's my truck. You know what I mean? I've drove for Wayne and Connie Spears for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. I don't remember what it was, but Wayne and Connie Spears, they did a lot for a lot of different drivers. They had a lot of different drivers: Andy Houston, Kevin Harvick, Marty Houston, Eric Amarillo, Dennis Setzer, on and on and on, and I remember Kevin saying, hey, don't, Harvick would tell me, hey, get in there and win a race or two, because it's not going to last long. You know what I mean? Because they really didn't have from what I understood, Wayne and Connie really didn't marry themselves to just one driver. They changed drivers a lot, and then Kevin would always come to me and say, hey, man, what have you done? How are you staying there that long? And I don't know. It's just the love I had for the sport. I loved racing for Wayne and Connie Spears, and they had great equipment. And, I was just so passionate and loved every minute of it that I don't know, I guess that my passion was contagious to them. They kept me around because they felt sorry for me. Hell, I don't know. But, man, what a great time, early on in my career. Really, the Spears trucks and that time in NASCAR really put me on the map, and man, I will never, ever forget what Wayne and Connie, the opportunity they gave me, but man, going back to the truck that Mike restored and bought, and his passion for that truck is just amazing, because looking at it and seeing some pictures that he sent me, I mean, he put that thing identical to the way it was when I last drove it. And that's just amazing, So to answer your question, Tyler, I don't know where 99% of the vehicles I raced over 25 years ended up, and who has them, and where they're at. A lot of them are you had to cut them up because they were so damaged that they were no good anymore. But the one Mike has there, man, that's pretty cool, because I got a couple of my wins in that truck, and it's pretty cool that he has that truck and he's so passionate about it, and how he put it back exact to the way it was when I last drove it is just amazing. And man, I'm just so impressed with Mike's passion and what he has there. It's just, it's an amazing story, really.
So Mike, along those lines then of what David's talking about, the full restoration that you had to do, you were telling us before we went on the air that you had to take this truck somewhere and have somebody repaint it and everything, because it had been painted over, some different things there. How did you get it to look like what it did previously?
So I kind of lucked out, Tyler, because when I was trying to figure out, okay, the width of the stripes and how wide and how far off the cab and all those questions, believe it or not, when it was first sold and got painted this dark blue color, they just painted on top of it. So when I opened up the hatch to the fuel cell and started opening hatches up, right there was the original white, the original light blue, the original blue, and I knew all the measurements of everything. So I was able to figure out the width and the striping and the spacing of everything, all because it was still there underneath the panels right when I opened them up.
Wow.
Amazing.
And then who'd you find to be able to do the job for you?
So a friend of mine who paints some motorcycles for me, I asked him one day, I said, hey, his name's Ed. And I said, Ed, you want to paint a race truck for me? And he was hesitant at first, But when he came over and he looked at it, and then I showed him photos of what I wanted to do, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll paint it." And I didn't even have to fork out like a steak dinner or nothing, Tyler. He painted it.
That's incredible. And one of the things I also find fascinating with this, Mike, and feel free to elaborate more on this, is from what you said at the beginning, you were looking at street trucks on Facebook, right? This is a truck that, in one state in particular, can be run on the streets.
Absolutely, Tyler. This truck is street legal in the state of Ohio. I have an Ohio title. It had license plates on it. It had turn signals. It had headlights where the vents are on the front air dam. It had a windshield wiper in it as well. And it was a street legal truck. It had everything that you needed, a horn, everything. And so when I bought it, my intent was, okay, I'm going to leave it street legal and just drive it around. But soon after I started digging into the state of California, of how hard this truly is to get this street legal in California, even though it has a title and it's street legal in another state, it was more of a challenge. And then, so I decided, you know what, I'm going to put it back to how it was race day. And then I'll just take it out to the track and I'll do some hot laps in it. I don't want to wreck it. To me, it's worth so much. It's so valuable as a collector piece. And that's kind of how that all came about with the title and the registration and all that. But inside the truck is the registration. It's sitting in there.
That is too cool.
And you drove this thing to the DMV once.
Yeah. So when I first got it, I convinced my buddy to follow me down because I was scared. I was like, see, somebody's going to see this and pull me over. So he jumped in his, So he jumped in his truck and followed me, and I drove it down to DMV to start the paperwork. And when I drove down the street to the DMV, I've got people honking at me, taking pictures with their cell phones out the window, rolling the windows down, asking me to rev the truck up. I mean, I was like all of a sudden a famous movie star or something, you know?
That's
cool. Incredible.
Yeah.
David, have you've taken some NASCAR stock cars on the street before, right?
Absolutely, I have. I understand what Mike's talking about, you know? So, yeah, it's, you know, you're like, man, it's when we move our NASCAR racing school cars from my race shop to the Texas Motor Speedway, you know, it's amazing. You know, I'm always like, man, hey, you know, people they're pulling up beside you, honking, videoing it with their phones, taking pictures. You know, it's amazing, you know, and it's pretty cool, you know, the enthusiasm and excitement from people driving on the street. I guess, you know, it's not every day you see a NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series driving down the road there in California. So it's quite a scene, you know, and so it's pretty cool experience. And man, you know, it's amazing that truck is still in existence because there's so much history behind, you know, the Spears racing team and all the different drivers and crew chiefs. And it really was a very, it was my first big time job in NASCAR. And, you know, you guys know our different guests over the years, and things we ask them. And a question that comes up when we have a lot of drivers on our podcast is like, you know, when did you finally know that, you know, that you made it and you was going to be able to sustain in a sport that you just love so much and you work so hard to get there as a professional, you know? And for me, it's that truck behind Mike, you know, it's what Mike has, you know, when Spears hired me and I went to go drive for him, and we were so competitive, so many top fives, top tens, and should have ones. You know, there was a lot of should have ones. And, you know, I knew at that point when Wayne and Connie Spears gave me the opportunities and the years clicked off that I knew that I was going to be able to make a living doing what I worked since I was a little boy to do, and so seeing that truck there and knowing the history and even looking at Mike's shirt he's wearing, I mean, it really means something special to me because it changed my life tremendously.
Oh, big time.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, as you've restored it and everything, Mike, tell me about. We see it there in your race shop. Do you get it out and drive it much? Like, what does it typically what do with the race truck these days?
So the plan with the truck, the first event that'll be seen by the public with the Spears paint job back on it will be May 20th at Irwindale Speedway. Their Spears Southwest Tour still races. They still have races. So they sponsor a race program, and they're having an event at Irwindale. And they had asked me to bring the truck out to Irwindale so they can put it next to the tech trailer in the pits on Friday for the drivers and people to see in the pits. And then on Saturday, the truck will go out to the front of the stadium at Irwindale so the public can see it. And then they were talking about a parade lap. So that's just one thing that's in store for it. I have plans in my head. I want to get this truck back to Gateway where it won, and I want to get it to Phoenix where it won. And Phoenix I'm working on right now. I spoke to the people at Gateway, and I'm trying to get communications established with Phoenix because that's where the truck won. And it would just be incredible to have this truck back there at a track that it won. And then besides that, Tyler, we'll do some local car shows and whatnot. You know what I mean?
Perfect.
Tyler,
I got to ask you, Mike, to having that truck and the opportunity to get behind the wheel, what's the fastest you've taken it so far?
Well, on the way to the DMV, I thought I was going pretty fast, but it was so damn loud in the truck. I don't know how fast I was going.
You know what's interesting about that truck behind you? When we won the race there at St. Louis Gateway, I think I told you guys a story. At best, we was a 5th place truck that night, and I don't even remember what year it was, 2002, 2003. I don't even remember. But I do remember the late, great Bobby Hamilton and Shane Mill. They really had the dominant trucks that night. And really, NASCAR had made a rule after the Gateway race that there was only going to be one attempt at a green, white checkered, and I think in the truck series, and I don't remember what the rule was, but we were tearing up a lot of equipment. And NASCAR finally said, hey, this is it. This is the last race that we're going to have a green, white, we're going to have multiple green, white checkers. And man, it just the way that race played out, I think there were maybe 5 or 6 green, white checkers. And, at best, I was the 5th place truck, and sometimes that's just all you got. So, you want to make sure that you maximize everything. And we just, if I remember right, we were in turns 3 and 4, we're a little tight, snug through the center. We couldn't get the thing to rotate like we needed it to rotate. There were 4 or 5 trucks better than us, and they just, they could get their trucks to rotate better and get back to the gas better. And you just, that was the best we had. And you have races like that. But man, as the laps clicked off, and next thing you know, Shane Mill and the late, great Bobby Hamilton, man, they took themselves out. I was like, wow, next thing you know, we're running 5th. Next thing you know, we're in 3rd. And I don't even remember, then it was, the guys that were running 3rd and 4th, they got to racing her pretty hard. I don't even remember who it was. But man, they ended up taking themselves out. The truck might have flipped on the back straightaway. I'm trying to remember. A lot of sparks, maybe a fire. And next thing you knew, man, was about 4 laps to go. I'm like, hell, I can win this race, And my buddy Chad Chafin was driving for, again, the late great Bobby Hamilton. I think Chad Chafin, he's from the Nashville area, a great race car driver. His truck was sponsored by Dickies, the workwear clothing company out of Fort Worth, Texas. And man, next thing you know, there was 3 laps to go, and I'm running in second, and we took the white flag going down into turn 1, and Chad was trying to, he was playing defense, trying to protect the lead, and I got it, and he slowed his trucks down a little bit more than what he had the last few laps, and I tagged him square on in the middle of turns 1 and 2. Just enough where it made him wiggle a little bit. He got out of the gas, and my truck rotated good. I was able to turn underneath him, and the forward bite we had coming up off the corner, we drag raced down the back straightaway and was able to make the pass and win the race. But it was, back then I remember it was a big deal because the truck series and all the competitors, tough trucks, tough drivers, they used that a lot back then. And man, if we were going to put that the final race to use multiple green white checkers, man, did it go out in a bang? Because I think, again, like I said, the last 15 laps, 10 laps, whatever it was, it took 4 or 5, maybe even 6 green white checkers to come up with the winner. You know what I mean? And the winner was sitting behind Mike right there, that race truck. So it's pretty cool story there on that.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah, for sure. Mike, tell me this, this race truck, and you mentioned to me earlier, you were such a big fan of the Camping World Truck Series and seeing David run in it. I mean, how cool was it just for you to have this piece of history and they have it restored this way? I mean, was it everything you imagined when you made the decision to buy this thing?
I would say absolutely, Tyler. Like, being a huge fan back in the 95, 96, 97 of the newly formed Craftsman Truck Series, to own a truck that I saw week after week back then. There's certain trucks that would always catch your eye, and it was the Spears truck that always caught my eye. So when I had an opportunity to put it back to the Spears truck, I was like, there's no doubt in my mind I'm going that direction. And so I was really excited to do that just because of the nostalgic history of Spears in the sport. They were there from the beginning to the end. They ran from 95 to 2007 when Camping World took over the series. So yeah, I was pretty excited, Tyler, to want to put it back to how it was, and then even more excited knowing that it was a famous driver who actually drove it. It wasn't a backup. It wasn't a show truck. It wasn't a winner, garage queen. It was a truck that truly won twice in the Craftsman Truck Series, and David Starr piloted that truck to those victories.
So David, now we got to find a way for you to get back in that truck.
Well, man, Mike was nice enough to offer me an invitation to come to Irwindale. But, I had, lots going on, racing schools, and, it was just, my schedule's just crazy. And, I'm going to try to get down there for that. But if I don't make it, that's one of my goals is to jump in it and make a couple laps at a racetrack somewhere, and it'd just be kind of cool. It would bring back a lot of memories, and it bring back just lots and lots of memories. We had a lot of great employees that worked at Spears Motorsports, and my crew chief, David McCarty, I called him Chief. He was, man, what a character he was, and he was good. Ron Hutter Motors, we used Hutter Motors, and that was equivalent to maybe a Hendrick or a Richard Childress racing engine today. Ron Hutter was on top of his game back then, and being able to hang out with Ron, get to know him as well as I did, and win races with his motors was a big deal, for all of us. And and kind of like Mike was talking, being always wanting to be a professional race car driver and racing my tail off and watching all kinds of different racing, and obviously tuned in like Mike was to the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, Craftsman Truck Series. that Spears truck, like Mike was saying, really caught my eyes too, and man, Ron Hornaday driving for Dale Earnhardt's, Dale Earnhardt, and and Harvick driving for for Wayne and Connie Spears, and just man, all the different drivers back then. Mike Skinner, ended up later being my teammate, and all that kind of stuff. It was just the Truck Series was just, man, it was back then, my days in the Truck Series with the drivers. There were 25 drivers could win any given race. It was so competitive, and again, like I said, getting that opportunity to drive the Spears Chevrolet truck in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, well, man, was just a dream come true for me, and it put me on the map, and it actually it changed my life, man. It changed my life. So, but man, a lot of great people. Dave McCarty, you heard Mike talk about Jason. Jason went on to be a great crew chief in NASCAR Xfinity Series. He's a great friend of mine. I compete against him, but he's at Colleague Racing doing a heck of a job. Really proud of him. And then, back then, Carl Long, Carl Long that owns MBM Motorsports in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, Carl worked for us. Carl would race his Cup car back then, but during the week, he was employed by Spears. And, man, we developed a great relationship early on, early 2001, 2. And but man, Carl had a great racing career and a great story. For most people didn't know, they seen him on the weekends racing in the Cup Series, but they didn't know during the week he worked on my race trucks. Which is really cool. But a lot of talented people that worked at Spears that went on to have very successful careers in our great sport was just amazing. And I'll cherish those memories and those days, because it was a dream come true, and I always spoke. People said, man, I remember you was always on television. Every time they put you on television, you always thank Connie and Wayne Spears, because, they did a lot for me, and, but man, seeing what Mike's done with that truck and knowing that somebody like Mike has so much passion for it and the history behind it, is just very, very cool, very humbling, and, I just love it. It's just cool, and really cool that he has it, man. I'm really proud of Mike and proud of what he has and what he's built there.
Oh yeah, that's awesome, guys. We'll shift gears, move on now. We'll have our Ask David segment coming up, but next is our news and notes for the top headlines around the sport. Dominic, what do we got this week?
We'll start with what happened over the NASCAR race weekend and events that led to a NASCAR Cup Series driver going behind bars. Cody Ware of Rick Ware Racing was arrested on April 10th on charges with Iredell County deputies accusing him of an alleged assault on a female. Other details were given the time of this publication, or this podcast coming out on publication this week. But guys, Cody missed the race. Matt Crafton drove the 51 car, and at this time he is facing an indefinite suspension from NASCAR with no signs of returning to the driver's seat anytime soon.
David, I know you know the Ware family and everything. Very just unfortunate, sad news here.
Yeah, Rick Ware and his wife, great people, known them for over 25 years, just good people. Just a sad story, you just, man, it's just, it's unfortunate and sad, you know what I mean? Sad for the victim. We don't know the circumstances, but what I do know is, that's not tolerated. Any sport, anybody, anywhere. I mean, so I don't know, just sad, sad situation, and you hate to see that, read about that, because there's no place. I mean, that's just unacceptable. You know what I mean? And all I can say is, I don't know any of the details. I know what we all know, but it's sad. It's all I really can say. I don't have enough information, or it's not my place. But I do know Rick Ware himself and his wife are great people, and I just pray for all of them. And then you got to pray for the victim, and just hopefully, I pray that it's like, man, if that stuff just not acceptable. I can't even believe that I saw that. We all read it. We all seen it. I mean, it's just, that's not something that happens in our sport of NASCAR racing. That's something that I know all of us are proud of. It's just the drivers, the crew chiefs. It's just such a great sport, family driven. You just don't hear about that kind of stuff. So when you do see that kind of stuff, it's very shocking, sad, disappointed, and there's no place anywhere that's not acceptable anywhere, anytime, any way, shape, or form. You know what I mean? So I just, like I said, and I'm sure they're doing investigations. I don't know. I mean, just to hear what happened was just sad.
Yeah, very sad. Mike, just unfortunate there. Still waiting on some more details and everything, but I hated hearing that news about Cody Ware there, Mike.
All right. You paused there, Tyler, so repeat your question.
Oh, Mike, I was just saying, it's just very unfortunate. I hated hearing that news about Cody Ware and that situation, the way it's unfolded the way it did.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate. And with this day and age, with the power of the internet, you really, no matter what goes on in your life, you're always on the pedestal and you're always in the spotlight. So like David had said, we don't know the facts of what happened, but whatever it may be, you just have to remember when you're in a sport such as NASCAR, NHRA, whatever it may be, you're on the pedestal and you're a figure for the public, and you got to be careful what you do in life. Yeah,
for sure. And Dominic, the Ware family and their situation, we've kind of seen some stuff in the past, right?
We have with an arrest with the younger brother Carson Ware, and I'm slipping on what those details were, but he was yanked from a ride for having an arrest and being an indefinite suspension from NASCAR. And Tyler, we haven't seen Carson back behind the wheel, and that's been, I believe, about 2 years ago. He was running some races under the Xfinity banner for Rick Ware Racing. You got to imagine the plan was probably for Carson to run some Cup races at some point, but we haven't seen him back.
Well, David, with that, Matt Crafton filled in that car at the last minute, kind of out of the blue. Matt Crafton jumping in that ride, but now I imagine, at least the contingency plan, kind of week by week, I guess, filling that ride. Who comes to mind maybe that could be stepping in the 51 car? Their affiliation with RFK Racing, that could be a nice opportunity for somebody to prove themselves here.
Oh, no doubt about it. There's so much talent in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series right now. You look at the Xfinity Series, and you got to think with their line, the Ford family. Rick Ware Racing is a Ford product, and with Haley Deegan, there's so many drivers, young drivers that deserve the opportunity. And I really think that you'll see Rick Ware Racing, that organization, probably pull within its own manufacturer. I would be surprised if they stepped out of that, out of their manufacturer. They're going to pull somebody, unfortunate situations create opportunities for others. You know what I mean? And be interested to see who they pick. And but yeah, there's plenty out there, lots and lots of talent, and it'd be interesting to see here in the next couple of days who fills that seat for this weekend's race in Martinsville.
Dom, you and I were talking over the phone last night, and there's some guys here that this could be a very good prove it situation of some sorts. It's a Ford team and everything here. If a driver can run up front in that car, you're going to garner a lot of attention.
Oh, for sure. And I think drivers that would come to mind at the top of that list would be somebody like Zane Smith, who has filled in for Chris Buescher when Buescher was out with the concussions. I also think too, Tyler, maybe somebody like Cole Custer, and I know that's more on the Stewart Haas side, but we've seen Custer run that 51 car. He ran that 51 car part-time before he went full-time in the Cup Series in 2020. Or maybe somebody like a Ty Majeski, maybe somebody out of the box like that would get that opportunity to run that car. Or what about like somebody like a Ryan Newman? Rick Ware and Ryan Newman had conversations about running some vehicles for him in 2022, and maybe there'd be an opportunity for a one-off, let's say a Martinsville race or a Talladega.
Yeah, I think so. What else going on, Tom?
Well, other NASCAR news, as you all are aware, NASCAR has been announcing throughout the last few days the NASCAR 75 greatest drivers. They're already using the platform of the greatest 50 drivers that were announced in 1998. But at the time of the publication of this podcast, we know 3 of the next 25 that have been added to that list. And that includes Tony Stewart, Casey Kane, and Mike Stefanik. So we have past champions, drivers that have won marquee races. There are still 22 drivers to be named on this list, Tyler, and I imagine we're going to see past champions as automatic shoo-ins, popular drivers, and maybe some wildcards.
Yeah, David, pretty cool deal here. NASCAR going with this top 75 drivers, greatest 75 drivers of all time for 75 years of the sport here.
Yeah, it's pretty cool and very interesting to see it all play out in front of us, and I remember when they had the greatest 50, and now to add 25 more to it for the NASCAR's 75th anniversary, it's just really cool. And I'm excited to hear who the next 22 are, and but I think it's cool, it's really neat, and to see Mike Helton present that to Tony Stewart before the dirt race at Bristol this past Sunday. I think it caught Tony off guard, but pretty neat deal, and there's a lot of them that belong in there. I know Jeff Bodine was he's been on our podcast, and he was part of that top 50 back then. And but man, there's been so many greats. How do you pick the 75 best, out of 75 years of so many different drivers? So it's cool. It's an honor for you look at the Hall of Fame, who's in the Hall of Fame, and but it'd be interesting to see them finish up the list of 75.
Dom, I wish they were just starting over and naming 75 drivers, because not to sound like recency bias or anything, but I feel like there's more than 25 drivers that would be eligible for that list that are better than the 50 that are already on it. I wish it was a new list of 75.
I got to disagree with you there, because we're honoring NASCAR's past. And at that time, the 50 years of NASCAR, first 50 years, they took the 50 best drivers. And yeah, there's going to be drivers that come and go, but I think it is an era thing. We've always talked about on the show how it's so hard to say who's the greatest driver of all time. You got to look more at the eras, and I think this pays more homage to that era, because we're going to get those best 25. Maybe we get somebody that comes on the list that was a part of NASCAR in those first 50 years. Maybe didn't make it then, but could make it now. I don't know. I could be wrong though.
Okay, let's get your opinions on this. NASCAR's top 75 driver list. We've already heard a couple names released of this next generation. Who comes to mind you think belongs in that group of the all-time greats?
I'm a huge Ricky Rudd fan. Ricky Rudd to me is probably one of the most incredible drivers in the sport. Ricky Rudd belongs in there with the all-time greats. Obviously, Bobby Labonte belongs in there. Another really Tony Stewart. I really like the golden era of NASCAR, let's call it, from the late 90s to the mid 2000s. I just think that era of NASCAR, when you had just one sponsorship on a car and that same driver all the time, and teams didn't have more than one or more than two drivers, you know what I mean? And so I just think that some of those guys back in that era, Tyler, are the guys that I would just love to see in those all-time great lists.
Yeah, that's some good stuff there. Dom, what else we got going on?
So the last thing before we get to everyone's favorite segment, of course, we got to preview the NASCAR race weekend at Martinsville this upcoming weekend. Look at some of your odds-on favorites. No surprise, Tyler. He's been fast all season, and he is the defending spring Martinsville winner. William Byron right now is your odds-on favorite to win at Martinsville with 6-1 odds. Next up is his teammate Kyle Larson with 13-2. Same with Christopher Bell tied at 13-2, and then Denny Hamlin, your fourth favorite, 7-1. You have 9 past Martinsville winners, and all 4 of these guys are past winners at Martinsville Speedway. And rounding out that top 5 would be Martin Truex at 17-2 to win. All past winners, Tyler, topping the list of perennial winners at Martinsville Speedway.
Martinsville, David, fantastic track. We've seen some great racing there. No reason why that a Sunday shouldn't be exciting.
Man, it's going to be amazing. The last time they ran there, you guys remember what happened? Last lap pass put somebody in the for the championship.
Wow.
But man, anytime you go to Martinsville, I don't care if it's the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series or the Xfinity Series or the Cup Series, man. It's grassroots, man. It's old school short track Saturday night under the lights feature. It's going to be tempers flare. Going to be people mad, but it's going to be exciting, And just listening to y'all speak about who's the odds-on favor. You got to think about William Byron and the Hendrick Motorsports team, and you look at momentum. Then you look at Christopher Bell just coming off of a win, and he's been kind of the guy that's taking the lead there at Joe Gibbs Racing, but you can't ever rule out Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick. I mean, I'm excited for the race this weekend. It's going to be a great Martinsville race, like it always is.
Yeah, Mike, who's some of the guys you're watching for?
I don't really have any particular favorites this weekend because it's anyone's game. It's what David said. It's short track racing at its best. I'll be there at Martinsville this weekend. And you just never know who's going to win. It's a short track, and anything can happen. If you're going to go to Xfinity, I'm all for the number 11 Colleague team. Daniel's on a good roll right now. They've been doing pretty good. And when it comes to trucks, I like Matt Crafton, but Zane Smith has definitely been showing that he's dominant once again.
Yeah, it's a very good point there. Let's make some official picks here for that Cup race. Dom, who are you going with?
Well, I got to say, there's no pressure, guys. I've been 2 for 2 the last 2 weeks. I had Kyle Larson at Richmond, Christopher Bell last week at Bristol. Now I'm going to go on the record and say Denny Hamlin wins at Martinsville. Let's make it 3 in a row, guys.
Okay. So Dominic going for the three-peat here on his picks. He's going with Denny Hamlin this week. David, let's see if you can stop Dominic's momentum. Who do you got this week?
Man, y'all know the 4-car, Kevin Harvick.
That's only the second time you've picked Kevin this year, Dave. No, I'm not that I'm keeping track, but I mean.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go with the guy that I've been picking, and it's been working for me. Not like Dominic's streak, but close enough. William Byron, 24 car, gets in victory lane, gets it done at Richmond for the 3rd time this year. Mike, give me one name. Who is your pick to win at Martinsville here?
It's going to run. I'm a Harvick fan.
There we go.
Okay.
Absolutely.
There we go. I had to get one out of you. So 2 for Harvick, 1 for Hamlin, and 1 for William Byron in our pick segment this week. Before we go, time for our Ask David segment. We ask you to submit questions to us on Facebook, Twitter, and also by email. davidstarpodcast@gmail.com is where you can find us there. That is where we found a question from Mike that told us all about this Spears truck that you've seen on today's show. Was straight from the inbox. So how about that to get us to this point? But nonetheless, we will go ahead and get to the questions this week. And the first question in the inbox, this one comes from Martha. And Martha wants to know, David, who's the toughest competitor you've ever raced against?
Oh man, that's a tough question, but man, there's several. There was just so many, and the ones that come to mind, Ron Hornaday, Jack Sprague, my great friend and teammate Mike Skinner were just tough competitors, man, tough guys. And there's so many more, but those guys come to mind. When you first ask the question, those are the guys that come to mind. They were just tough competitors, man, tough. And but yeah, that was Ron Hornaday, man. He was tough, and he raced you hard every lap. And Skinner was the same way, man. They didn't give an inch, man. It was there was no giving each other an inch. No, from the time they waved the green flag to start the race until they dropped the checker flag, those guys were just hardcore every lap, every second of the race.
What about now in the Xfinity Series? From the guys you've raced against the last couple of years, David, who's been maybe the toughest to pass or to get around of some sorts? Who kind of held their own in the Xfinity Series from what you saw the last couple of years?
Well, man, it ain't like I've been with these powerhouse teams over the years in the Xfinity Series. There's been some tough competitors, driving great powerhouse team cars, but all of them are good. Even, a lot of the young guns and new guys coming in the Xfinity Series, I mean, they're all super competitive. And but for me to tell you one that stands out on the Xfinity side, I really can't tell you. It's just hard racing, and just everybody's just racing hard. There's not really one that stands out for me on the Xfinity side over the years.
What about maybe a couple names, whatever? Maybe even guys that are racing where you're at on track. Is there like some type of guy you try to measure yourself against? Like, man, if we can run up with this guy, or if we're going to compete, a measuring stick of some sorts. What comes to mind there?
Well, I mean, it's different today. We always talked about winning races, running good week in and week out. And the types of teams that your money affords you to race for. What your budget looks like is going to be it depends on how much funding you bring to the table. It kind of dictates the quality of the team, and sometimes when you're dealing with the kind of money that a lot of us bring to the table, you really want to be the best of that group. There's you got the powerhouse teams, the guys are going to run in the top 12 or 13, the powerhouse colleagues and Dale Jr. teams and excuse me, and the your Penske teams, but if you're in that middle of the pack range with the dollar amounts you have, you want to be the best of that group that you can compete with, if that makes sense. So that if you bring in $800,000 or $1 million to the table, it's hard to beat the teams that can operate on $8, $9, $10 million. You know what I mean? So you just want to be the best out of the group of guys that you're racing with, that you race with week in and week out.
Yeah, for sure. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Well, and Dom, I feel like just watching, whether it's at the racetrack or on TV, that this era of drivers, and maybe David's got an opinion on this too, it feels like this next era of drivers races with a lot of confidence, a lot of toughness. Like it seems like from afar, David, there's less give and take than there's ever been before.
There really is. There's you got to understand that we're in an industry that's performance driven. It's all about what have you done lately, and there's pressure. There's pressure for results. And you got to understand it's big business, big sponsors, manufacturers, it's very, very competitive. It always has been, but the guys that I raced with for a long time in the truck series, they were, we just talked about it, but sometimes, if as a racer, if somebody's really much better than you, they've caught you from a half lap back, or your spotter's saying, hey man, these guys, they're coming and they're on a rail, it really, out of respect, because one of those, you're going to have great races where, something happens and you're coming through the field and, and people give you a little bit of room. But it seems like today's world, speaking of the Cup Series, man, even if somebody's got a better car, I mean, you got to work your tail off to get past somebody, you know what I mean? Even when but you guys have seen over the years, sometimes you'll see Kyle Busch, Harvick, different ones. If somebody's better, they'll just kind of, thinking about that, I saw Kyle Busch at the LA Coliseum early in the first race of the season. he really let his teammate Austin Dillon go by right there at the end of the race because he felt like he didn't want to hold Austin up, and Austin had a car that could compete for the win with whoever was winning at the time, and you don't see much of that anymore. It's hardcore. I'm going to hold you off. There's not a lot of respect like there once was, but that's just the nature of the beast, man. We're paid, we're warriors, and you're not paid to pull over and let somebody go by. You're paid to pass and beat every car and to keep them behind you. So there's always there's always been big discussions over that over the years, and we are racing, you know what I mean? So for me, I can speak about me depending on how my race truck was at a certain part of the race. If I knew somebody was faster than me, I gave them a little bit of room because you didn't want to hold them up, and in return, when your crew chief, you made a great pit stop and they made some adjustments, the next thing you know, you got the dominant truck. You hope they repaid the favor, you know what I mean? But you don't see much of that today. You see some of it sometimes, but it's pretty much, man, everybody's driving their tail off like it's the final lap, even from the start of the races. And that's really what makes our sport what our sport is today. It makes it exciting. The fans love it. And, I don't have a problem with that, so it is a little bit different these days, and we're hearing more about it, because we're talking about it now.
Yeah. Mike, your thoughts, the competitive level, I'm entertained just how much depth there is in NASCAR right now. And the TV broadcast focus so much on the leaders at the top, but every position matters.
Absolutely. I think that the sport nowadays has changed from what it was, say, in the 90s to the 2000s. And now, we heard, I forgot what driver was just talking about respect. I think it was Kyle Busch. A lot of drivers, it's like cutthroat. I mean, it's like you said, I got to win. And they're trying to win on the last lap, on the first lap. And it's very aggressive racing. It's just not what I'm used to seeing back in let's call it back in, when I first started watching NASCAR. And so I think back like, wow, man, if you would have tried something like that against Dale Earnhardt or whoever, they would have ran you into the wall. And it's very cutthroat nowadays with the Cup Series. I think with NASCAR and the aggressiveness of the drivers.
Yeah, that's a good point. With that, I got another question in the inbox. This one comes from Jackie. Jackie wants to know, David, what's the most interesting conversation you've had with a driver at driver intros?
Yes, some I can't repeat on our podcast. Yeah, it's there's some characters out there that are great race car drivers, but off the racetrack, they keep me entertained, and but that's a great question. I'm when I'm at the racetrack, when I get there in the morning until I leave, basically until they drop the checker flag, man, I'm focused. I'm there taking care of my sponsors, but man, I'm all about the race, how the race is going to play out, focused on the task at hand. And it's interesting at times, when all the competitors get together and we're on the behind the stage before driver intros, it's interesting to the conversations that you end up having with your fellow competitors is somebody could probably write a book on that, you know what I mean? It'd be probably the bestseller, because it's really, you can only imagine the stories, and I always find it intriguing, you know what I mean? Because even for myself, I'm focused on that freaking race, and thinking about it in my head, and I've always thought it's amazing that some of the competitors, a lot of them, what they're thinking about, 15 minutes before they're fixing to drop the green flag. It's kind of nuts and crazy, but that's a great question, and it's something that I really can't share with y'all because some of them are crazy.
Give us one that you can share, David.
Well, it's just sometimes competitors are going through a divorce or something happened, and I mean, you can only imagine, man. You can only imagine some of the entertainment you get from other competitors at that moment when you're just kind of hanging out waiting to be introduced. I really like to talk about, for me, I like to talk about how people's race cars are handling what they found in practice that really helped it, where they're struggling at. I'm picking brains to find out, what somebody learned in practice and how their car's handling and stuff like that. And tire fall off, and a lot of other drivers, that's not really what's on their mind at that present time, and some of them are looking at the audience around us and making comments about different people. And I mean, it's just, it's very interesting and a great question. I can assure you of that. And it's just a great question. It makes me laugh and think about some of the crazy conversations and different subject matters,
Well, Tyler, I remember we had Joe Nemechek on the show about 6 months ago, and I remember him saying anything that you talk about a driver intros, you pretty much talk about anything but the race car. So here David kind of just hammer that on too. We can only imagine, to be a fly on the wall at driver intros.
Yeah, David's kind of keeping secret about these conversations. Now, I just want to know more, I mean, it's somebody saying, Dom, I mean, even you and I, like during driver intros, like, the pre-race portion of when the guys are headed to the stage and when they're leaving, it's very interesting because even for us or, other media members or fans, that's a time to interact and talk with these drivers for a couple minutes right before they hop in the race car. It's unlike any other sport.
Absolutely. Could you imagine Peyton Manning in his prime with the Indianapolis Colts or Denver Broncos just chatting with fans as they're warming up on the field or in the locker room getting ready to go out before they take the field? No.
Those guys are locked in.
Exactly. And not saying NASCAR drivers aren't, but man, it's a different type of access. Even the fact that you can dial up a driver during a stage break or a caution flag period, no other sport has that kind of access. The only one I can think of, Tyler, is the XFL.
Yeah, they mic up the guys during the game, and you can hear everything. Mike, have you ever talked to any drivers or anything during a driver intros before?
One of the things, Tyler, I'm going to chime in here and tell you, one of the things that's a common thing is to really talk about the race, the past race, the past weekend. I mean, a lot of times, you're analyzing the past race from the weekend before about what happened and how it played out. A lot of times I like to, discuss the previous race, because, I haven't seen the driver and, we're at the racetrack. We're busy practice. You don't have much practice these days. You're qualifying. You're really just engaged with your crew chief, engineer, your team, and so a lot of times we don't really have a lot of time with your fellow competitors, and that time when we go to the stage prior to driver intros and we're all together, for me, some of my conversations are about the previous race, and what happened and why this and why that, so yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome point. Mike, was trying to ask you there, you ever had any interaction with the drivers around driver intros on pit road or anything?
I've not. I've never had any.
Okay. Well, we need to change that. We need you to be around David or something one of these times before a race here or something,
Tyler, I had a very memorable first experience with with David at California. And so even though I had met drivers in the past, I found David probably to be one of the most approachable, nicest, down-to-earth drivers ever.
Oh, he is. What you see
David.
is what you get with David Starr, and speaking of driver intros, Dom, I hear that come Texas, David's got something special cooked up for you?
But potentially, we're in the works of it. I hear he might be carrying an infant either at Texas or some other track, right? Not where his boys are, because we don't take away from that, but a special little boy is going to get to be a part of David with introductions at some point. Here, we're trying to work that out, David.
I would be honored. That'd be pretty cool.
We're gonna put like a little mic, hide it in his ear or something so he can listen in on all these secret conversations, going on in driver intros.
If I have Christopher with me, all you'll be hearing me kissing on his cheeks. You know what I mean? Because I love kissing baby's cheeks.
Just don't be like the Dalai Lama now.
That's funny, man.
On that note, we will just about get out of here and go. Before we do, around the room, what's going on this weekend? Mike, you'll be at Martinsville, right?
Absolutely. I'll be out there this weekend. I'm flying into Dulles Airport, heading down to Martinsville for the truck race and the Xfinity race. And then, believe it or not, to add to the segment, I am on my way down to Georgia to go pick up a bunch of Spears truck parts that the gentleman who originally had bought this truck from Spears got a bunch of other stuff and another chassis. So I'm on my way down there to see what parts he has and what I can gobble up this weekend. So I will be in the Martinsville area, and then down to Charlotte and Mooresville, and then down to Georgia, and then I'm going to drive back to California.
That sounds like a haul there, Mike. Best of luck to you. It sounds like you'll have a good time. Dominic, what's going on with you, bud?
Man, I'll be spending it at home weekend with Felice and Christopher. It's going to be a nice little weekend at home, and really haven't had that for a little bit, so that'll be nice to not really be on the road anywhere. It's fun to travel, Tyler, as you know, but man, it'll be nice to spend just to have a nice, relaxing weekend at home.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm staying here in Dallas, not going anywhere this weekend, but I'll be in Talladega next week. David and I will be out there. We'll have a heck of a time. David, you got a lot going on with the racing school and everything next couple of days, right?
Oh man, just busy with a couple of sponsor meetings, and we got a big day at Texas Motor Speedway on Saturday. But that's awesome. But sad I won't be in Martinsville. That's just one of my favorite races to run. One there, always run good there, and man, that just takes you back to those, your roots of short track racing. Don't get any better in Martinsville, So sad that I won't be there competing, but I will in the future. And but man, I'm going to be tuned in to what's going on there. Always, it don't get much better than a good short track race at Martinsville, Virginia. That's for sure. So I'll be tuned in to all the racing going on there this weekend.
I will say, David, I don't know how you feel about this. The Martinsville hot dog, disgusting, nasty.
Well, we could probably have a segment on the Martinsville hot dog. You know what I mean? And man, over the years they've been good to me. I loved them. I love them. Some people love them, some people hate them. For me personally, there's nothing wrong with a good Martinsville hot dog. I do your traditional hot dog, and they, the hot dogs there at Martinsville, they like to put coleslaw on them. I don't believe a hot dog should have coleslaw on it, but the Martinsville's hot dog is definitely famous.
We've had them in Daytona before, Tyler. They'll bring them there in the media center as one of the pre-race festivities on like that Friday or Saturday before the Daytona 500. I don't know. Maybe you got a bad batch. They weren't that bad.
Weren't that bad. See, exactly. That's my point. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's probably Coronado weenies, and I remember the president of Martinsville Speedway saying they have like 40 or 50,000 hot dogs on hand for the weekend, but they're not. Let me rephrase it. They're pretty good. They're not like world's finest, but they will get you full on a pinch. And Mike, I look forward to hearing if you like.
Hot dogs aren't supposed to be pink.
Yeah. Hey, Dominic. Dom, here's the problem. If Tyler would just have one, he'd be okay. But when you eat as many as he eats, he upsets his tummy. You know what I mean?
Whoa! Hold on. We got to go. Big thanks, Mike, for joining us, stopping by and showing us the race truck and telling us the whole backstory on that. That's awesome. Great story there.
Thank you, Mike.
We're ready to have you
posted.
back on to hear about how this journey goes, man. It's going to be awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely so. Big thanks to you, the listener, as well, for joining us as well. For David Starr, Dominic, Aragon, I'm Tyler Jones. We'll put the checkered flag out in this episode. As always, subscribe to the show. New episodes out each and every week. Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. Also, hit us up on social media, Facebook.com/Star Podcast, Twitter @Star Podcast, and by email, DavidStarPodcast@gmail.com. For our entire crew, Tyler Jones, thanks so long. It's been another edition of Let's Go Racing. We'll see you next week.